The warning pulse. Commander Elise Nakamura stared at the anomaly floating against the starfield beyond her view screen, her dark eyes narrowed in concentration. After 15 years patrolling the edges of Earth's territorial boundary, what most spacers called the Veil, she had never encountered anything quite like this. "Full scan, Lieutenant Akafer," she ordered, her voice steady despite the unease crawling up her spine. The object was undeniably artificial, a tetrahedral structure approximately 8 meters across, its surface inscribed with flowing patterns that seemed to shift when observed directly. More concerning was its position, exactly zero point 0.3 astronomical units beyond the officially recognized boundary of human space. Energy readings are unusual, Commander, Lieutenant Zora Akafer reported, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. The object appears to be broadcasting on frequencies we've never documented before, and it's getting stronger. The UES Prometheus hung at the edge of the Veil, the most advanced reconnaissance vessel in Earth's defensive fleet. Their mission had been simple: investigate a sensor ghost reported by an automated patrol drone. What they'd found was anything but simple. "It's not Arcturian design," observed Chief Science Officer Dr. Dmitry Volkov, stroking his gray beard thoughtfully. "And definitely not Centaurian. This configuration suggests something older." Elise's military training warred with her curiosity. Standard protocol was clear: anything unknown beyond the boundary represented a potential threat and should be reported immediately, not approached. Earth's relationships with the handful of alien civilizations they'd encountered were cordial but distant, marked by careful diplomatic exchanges and strict territorial boundaries. "Sir," came the voice of Communications Officer Prisha Mehta, "I'm detecting a signal. It's being broadcast on all frequencies in what appears to be Earth standard." "That's impossible," Dr. Volkov murmured. "No non-human species would use our language protocols." "Play it," Elise commanded. A voice filled the bridge, neither male nor female, with a resonance that seemed to bypass their ears and speak directly to their minds. "To the children of Earth, the boundary exists for your protection. What sleeps must remain sleeping. Some HISTORIES are better left forgotten." The message repeated once before falling silent, leaving the bridge crew exchanging troubled glances. "Permission to lead a reconnaissance team, Captain," requested Security Chief Jackson Torres, already reaching for his tactical gear. Elise hesitated. Crossing the boundary without authorization from Earth Command meant risking her career, possibly even court-martial. Yet something about this beacon felt deliberate, as if it had been placed specifically for humans to find. "Granted," she said finally, "but at the first sign of trouble you withdraw immediately. Take Lieutenant Akafer and Dr. Volkov with you." The boarding operation proceeded smoothly, too smoothly, Torres thought as their shuttle approached the alien structure. No defenses activated, no warnings triggered. The object simply hung in space, pulsing with that strange inner light. "The structure is adapting to our approach," Akafer reported, studying her scanner. "It's reconfiguring its molecular structure to match our atmospheric requirements." "It was designed for us to find," Dr. Volkov concluded, his voice filled with wonder. "It's been waiting." As they drew closer, a seam appeared in the tetrahedral surface, opening to reveal an interior chamber bathed in soft blue light. The team exchanged glances before Torres led them inside, pulse rifle held ready despite the apparent absence of threat. The chamber was empty except for a central pedestal, upon which rested a crystalline sphere approximately 30 centimeters in diameter. As they approached, the sphere activated, projecting a three-dimensional star map that filled the chamber. "That's our solar system," Akafer whispered, pointing to a familiar configuration of planets. "But something's wrong with Earth." In the projection, Earth pulsed with an angry red light, surrounded by concentric rings that extended out to Saturn's orbit, a perfect representation of the Veil. A new voice emanated from the sphere, different from the recorded message, deeper, older somehow. "If you are receiving this warning, then the Sentinels have allowed your civilization to develop beyond its previous limitations. This is unexpected. This is concerning." The star map shifted, zooming in on a location near Mars. Coordinates flashed across the surface of the sphere. "The truth of your history lies buried beneath the red sands. Find it before you attempt to breach the Veil again. The Sentinels will not permit a seventh cycle of destruction." The projection vanished, leaving the team in stunned silence until their comm units crackled with Commander Nakamura's urgent voice. Tours, get your team out of there now. We're detecting multiple ships dropping out of FTL at the edge of our sensor range. Tours didn't need to be told twice. Move, he ordered, ushering his team back toward the shuttle. As they departed, the tetrahedral structure began to fold in upon itself, collapsing into dimensions that shouldn't have been possible until it vanished entirely, leaving behind only the crystalline sphere which Tours had managed to secure before evacuation. Back aboard the Prometheus, tensions ran high as the sensor readings were confirmed. 3 vessels of unknown configuration had appeared at the extreme edge of their scanning range. They maintained their distance, neither approaching nor communicating, simply watching. "We need to report this to Earth Command," Lieutenant Maida suggested, but Elise was already studying the coordinates extracted from the alien sphere. "Those coordinates point to the Val's Marineris," Dr. Volkov noted, "the abandoned research station at Outpost Ares." Elise made her decision. Set course for Mars. Whatever's buried there might explain why alien species have given Earth such a wide berth for the past century. "Commander," Tours interjected, "with all due respect, our orders." "Our orders are to investigate threats to Earth's security," Elise cut him off. "I'd say an ancient warning about cycles of destruction qualifies." The journey to Mars took 3 days, during which Dr. Volkov conducted every analysis he could think of on the crystalline sphere. It remained inert, offering no further information, though certain frequencies caused it to vibrate in patterns that suggested it might be responsive to specific stimuli they had yet to discover. Outpost Ares had been abandoned 15 years earlier after a series of unexplained equipment failures and psychological disturbances among the research team. The official explanation cited dust storms and radiation concerns, but rumors had always persisted of something more sinister. Dr. Javier Dominguez awaited them at the airlock, the sole remaining researcher who had stubbornly refused evacuation orders and continued his archaeological work in isolation. His face was weathered by years under the Martian sun, his once neat beard now wild and streaked with gray. "I knew someone would come eventually," he said by way of greeting, his eyes widening at the sight of the crystalline sphere. "You found one of the messengers." "You know what this is?" Elise demanded. Dominguez smiled thinly. "Follow me." He led them through the dusty corridors of the outpost to a sealed chamber that hummed with active power systems, unexpected in a supposedly abandoned facility. The door hissed open to reveal a laboratory filled with artifacts that defied conventional archaeological categorization. Fragments of technology that appeared both ancient and futuristic simultaneously. "3 years ago, I discovered a subterranean structure 2 kilometers beneath the surface," Dominguez explained, activating a holographic display. "Carbon dating placed it at approximately 200,000 years old." "That's impossible," Akafer whispered. "Human civilization is barely 10,000 years old." "Human civilization as we know it," Dominguez corrected. "What I found suggests this wasn't our first attempt at technological advancement." The holographic display showed a massive underground chamber, its walls covered in writing that combined mathematical formulas with what appeared to be warnings in dozens of ancient languages. At the center stood a massive device, a ring of unknown metal surrounding what could only be described as a tear in space itself. "I believe this was a dimensional anchor," Dominguez continued, "created by our ancestors to maintain the barrier we now call the veil." "You're suggesting humans created the boundary that's been keeping us contained?" Tours asked incredulously. "Not exactly," Dominguez replied, taking the crystalline sphere from Dr. Volkov's hands. "I believe we created what waits beyond the boundary." He placed the sphere into a depression on a device in the center of his laboratory. The fit was perfect, as if designed specifically for this purpose. The sphere began to pulse with light, projecting images that made Elise's blood run cold. They witnessed Earth at different points in history, some recognizable from historical records, others showing impossible civilizations with technologies that surpassed even their current capabilities. Cities that floated above the clouds. Vessels that bent space itself. "This isn't humanity's first ascension to the stars," Dominguez said softly. "According to what I've translated, it's our 6th. Each time we've reached a point of exponential growth, and each time that growth has led to catastrophe, not just for Earth but for entire sectors of the galaxy." The projection shifted to show massive machines, planet-sized constructs of impossible complexity systematically dismantling worlds. The Sentinels, Elise breathed, understanding dawning. Created by our ancestors during the fifth cycle, Domings confirmed. Programmed to ensure humanity never again threatens galactic stability. They don't just destroy our civilization when we advance too quickly, they erase it completely, returning us to a primitive state, wiping away all traces of our progress. Lieutenant Akafer studied the data streaming from the projection. The cycle averages about 12,000 years from basic tools to interstellar travel. We advance at an exponential rate compared to other species. And that makes us dangerous, Torres concluded grimly. The sphere's light intensified suddenly, pulsing in a sequence that caused the entire outpost to tremble. Outside, the Martian sky darkened as energy patterns rippled across the planet's thin atmosphere. "What's happening?" Elise demanded, steadying herself against a console. Domings's face had gone pale. "It's transmitting, the sphere, it's sending a signal." "To what?" Torres asked, his hand moving instinctively to his weapon. "Not what," Domings whispered, his eyes fixed on the projection now showing massive forms stirring in the void beyond Jupiter. "To whom?" "The Sentinels are awakening." As if in confirmation, their comm units simultaneously activated with an emergency broadcast from Earth Command. All vessels, multiple unidentified objects emerging from dimensional space near Jupiter's orbit. Objects exhibit impossible mass readings and energy signatures beyond known parameters. All military assets to defensive positions. This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not. The transmission cut off abruptly as the sphere projected one final message before going dark. The seventh trial BEGINS, the choice is yours. Commander Nakamura looked at her team, the weight of what they'd discovered settling over them like a shroud. They had found the answer to why the galaxy had given Earth such a wide berth, and it had nothing to do with fear of humanity's current capabilities. It was fear of what humanity had been before, and what they might become again, the Guardian's choice. 3 days after the awakening, humanity stood at the precipice of its greatest crisis. The Sentinels, 27 massive constructs of impossible geometry, had positioned themselves in a perfect formation around Jupiter, their surfaces rippling with energy patterns that defied conventional physics. Every attempt at communication had been met with silence. Every probe sent to investigate had been disintegrated upon approach. Earth's combined military forces had mobilized, but Admiral Hiroshi Tanaka knew the truth. If these entities decided to attack, there would be no defense. "The evacuation protocols are proceeding as planned," reported Vice Admiral Nadia Petrova, her holographic image flickering slightly across the war room table. "But we need more time." Admiral Tanaka nodded grimly. Across Earth's colonies, people were being moved to designated sanctuary zones, ancient bunker systems that had been discovered beneath every major settlement. Systems that, according to Dr. Domings's translations, had been designed to survive previous resets. "We may have another option," interjected Ambassador Omar Khalid, the newly appointed envoy to the Sentinels. Tall and dignified with silver-streaked hair, he had spent decades negotiating with non-human species. But even he seemed overwhelmed by the task before him. "Dr. Domings believes we might be able to establish communication through the dimensional anchor on Mars." "The same anchor that woke them up in the first place?" General Wei Lin questioned skeptically. "The Sentinels aren't fully awakened," corrected Dr. Domings through his own connection. The archaeologist looked exhausted, his eyes sunken from days without sleep. "They're deliberating. If they decided to reset us, it would have happened already." A tense silence fell over the assembly. The evidence recovered from Mars had painted a chilling picture. 6 times humanity had reached for the stars, and 6 times they had been deemed too dangerous to continue. But this cycle was different. The veil, the boundary that had contained Earth's expansion, had been a test, one they might still pass. "Ambassador Khalid," Tanaka said finally, "you have 48 hours to establish communication. After that, we implement the Lazarus Protocol." No one needed to ask what that meant. Earth's most desperate contingency plan involved detonating quantum destabilizers at strategic points throughout the solar system. A scorched Earth policy that might not stop the Sentinels but would ensure that if humanity fell, nothing would remain for the victors. The Europa expedition had been Ambassador Khalid's idea. a desperate gamble based on patterns discovered in the Mars archives. If the dimensional anchor on Mars had served as a warning system, the outpost beneath Europa's ice might contain something more valuable, a direct link to those who had created the Sentinels. Commander Fatima Rahman guided the submersible through the narrow channel carved into Europa's icy crust. Her three-person crew had been chosen for their expertise in xenoarchaeology and quantum mechanics, and more importantly, for their willingness to undertake a mission with minimal chances of return. "We're approaching the thermal signature," reported Dr. Marcus Wung, studying the scanner readings. "Whatever's generating heat down here has been doing so for at least 150,000 years." What they found defied expectations. Not ruins, but an active installation, a massive crystalline structure suspended in the subsurface ocean, pulsing with internal light that cast eerie patterns through the dark waters. More surprising were the signs of recent activity, maintenance drones moving along predefined paths, repairing and sustaining the ancient systems. "It's been waiting for us," whispered Dr. Layla Oak, the team's linguistics specialist, "just like the beacon." They docked at an airlock that seemed to anticipate their arrival, its mechanisms activating as they approached. Inside, breathable atmosphere awaited them, another impossibility that no one bothered to question after everything they'd witnessed. The heart of the facility contained a single chamber, its walls lined with technology that hummed with quiet power. At its center stood a translucent column filled with swirling silver fluid that coalesced into human form as they entered, a woman of indeterminate age, her appearance shifting subtly as if unable to maintain a consistent form. "Welcome, descendants," the figure spoke, her voice resonating with the same quality as the message from the beacon. "I am Mnemosyne, keeper of memories. You have questions." "About the Sentinels," Fatima confirmed, stepping forward. "About why they've awakened." "They awaken because the cycle approaches its conclusion," Mnemosyne replied. "As it has 6 times before, what differs is that you have found our messages earlier than anticipated. This suggests potential." Dr. Wung activated his recording devices while Dr. Oak stepped forward. "The records on Mars indicated we created the Sentinels ourselves. Why would we design our own wardens?" The silver figure's expression shifted to something resembling sadness. "Because we recognized our own nature. Humanity advances too rapidly, creates without wisdom, destroys without understanding. In our 5th ascension, we nearly destroyed the fabric of reality itself." Images appeared around them, holographic representations of Earth's previous civilizations, each more advanced than the last, each ending in catastrophic collapse. The Sentinels were programmed with a single directive: protect the galaxy from humanity's unchecked advancement, but they were also given the capacity to recognize true change. Mnemosyne's form rippled. "You stand at a crossroads. If you can demonstrate that this cycle differs from those previous, that humanity has evolved beyond its destructive patterns, the Sentinels will grant you passage beyond the veil." "And if we can't?" Fatima asked. "Then the reset begins anew. Not extinction, the Sentinels never destroyed humanity completely. They simply reduced us. Returned us to a primitive state, erased our knowledge, allowed us to begin again, to try once more to evolve beyond our limitations." Dr. Oak looked troubled. "How do we prove we've changed? How do we pass this test?" "That," said Mnemosyne, "is the question the Sentinels themselves are deliberating." On the observation deck of the UES Prometheus, Commander Nakamura watched as the Cassiopean delegation's ship approached. The crystalline vessel moved with an elegant grace that made human ships look clumsy by comparison. The Cassiopeans had arrived unprompted 3 hours earlier, requesting immediate audience with Earth's leadership. As one of the oldest spacefaring civilizations in the known galaxy, their unexpected appearance had sparked both hope and suspicion. "They're responding to the Sentinels' awakening," Dr. Volkov theorized. "Perhaps they've witnessed this before." The Cassiopean ambassador, a tall, willowy being with iridescent skin and 4 upper limbs, was escorted onto the bridge with appropriate ceremony. Ambassador Trelka bowed deeply before speaking in carefully practiced Earth standard. "We come offering perspective. The awakening of the Guardians is an event of galactic significance." "You call them Guardians, not Sentinels," Elise noted. "Names differ, purpose remains." Trelka gestured with their upper limbs in what Elise recognized as a sign of respect. "Your species troubles many in the galactic community. You advance too quickly. You question too deeply, you imagine possibilities others fear to consider. So we've been told, Torres muttered. What most do not understand, Trelka continued, is that these qualities are precisely why the Guardians exist, not merely to contain humanity but to prepare it. Dr. Volkov leaned forward. Prepare us for what? The galaxy approaches a critical juncture. Ancient patterns fade. New threats emerge from the spaces between stars. The Guardians were created to ensure that when humanity finally emerged from its boundary, it would do so with wisdom rather than desperation. Elise felt a chill run down her spine. You're saying the veil wasn't meant to be permanent. Nothing is permanent, Trelka agreed. The test was never whether humanity could break free through force. It was whether you would choose understanding over power when given the opportunity. As if in response to the Cassiopean's words, the comm system activated. Lieutenant Maida's eyes widened. Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the Sentinels. The broadcast reached every human settlement simultaneously, a presence that resonated in minds rather than through conventional communication systems. Children of Earth, you have ACCESSED restricted knowledge. Protocol DMANDS immediate reset of civilization progression. Across the solar system, people held their breath, waiting for the end. However, ANOMALIES have been DETCTED in current cycle progression. Evaluation PARAMETRS require adjustment. In the war room on Earth, Admiral Tanaka exchanged glances with his officers. Ambassador Khalid, connected via quantum link from Mars, leaned forward intently. Previous CYCLES, humanity chose expansion through dominance. Current cycle, first contact PROTOCOLS emphasize communication over conquest. Territory RESTRICTIONS accepted without significant violation for 103 standard years. They've been watching us, General Wei whispered, all this time. Ambassador OMARKHALID approached the dimensional anchor with the Mnemosyne data. A choice awaits. The transmission ended, leaving humanity in suspended anticipation. On Mars, Ambassador Khalid stood before the activated dimensional anchor, the data retrieved from Europa's Mnemosyne consciousness loaded into the crystalline sphere. Dr. Domings watched from a safe distance, his instruments recording everything. What choice do you think they mean? Khalid asked quietly. Domings shook his head. According to the records, previous cycles always chose to fight when confronted by the Sentinels. They tried to overcome them with technology, with weapons, with desperate last stands. Perhaps the choice is simply to listen. Khalid placed the sphere into the anchor's central receptacle. The device hummed to life, creating what appeared to be a tear in reality itself, a window into somewhere else. Through this dimensional window stepped a figure, humanoid but clearly artificial, its body composed of the same shifting material as the Sentinels, though condensed into human scale. I am Interface, the figure announced. I speak for the collective judgment. Khalid bowed slightly. I speak for Earth and her colonies. Your species stands at threshold point, Interface stated. Previous iterations reached similar juncture, all chose resistance, all failed evaluation parameters. We don't wish to resist, Khalid replied carefully. We wish to understand. Something like surprise flickered across Interface's featureless face. Understanding requires acceptance of limitation. Can humanity accept that its advancement must be guided, that freedom without wisdom leads to destruction? Khalid considered his words carefully, aware that humanity's future hung on his response. We've lived within the veil for generations, knowing there were boundaries we couldn't cross. Yet in that time, we've learned to look inward as well as outward. We've developed philosophies of coexistence, technologies of preservation rather than merely expansion. Words Interface dismissed. Previous cycles offered similar assurances. Then don't judge us by our words, Khalid countered. Judge us by the choices we've made. When we discovered the truth about our past cycles, did we immediately mobilize for war? Did we attempt to break through the veil by force? No, we sought understanding. Interface seemed to consider this. The Cassiopean intervention was unexpected. Their assessment of humanity's potential differs from historical consensus. Perhaps because we're different this time, Khalid suggested. Not perfect, not free from the capacity for destruction, but aware of it, mindful of it. Provisional assessment suggests possibility of divergence from previous patterns. Interface acknowledged. However, final determination requires demonstrable proof. What proof would convince you? Khalid asked. The ultimate test remains unchanged through all cycles, Interface stated. Humanity must demonstrate capacity to wield power through restraint rather than dominance. The dimensional anchor flared suddenly, its energy patterns shifting to display a star map, a region of space beyond the veil where three shimmering points of light pulsed with invitation. Three paths lie beyond your boundary, Interface explained. One leads to technological ascension, weapons and defenses beyond current comprehension. One leads to biological transcendence, modification of human form to surpass current limitations. One leads to diplomatic integration, alliance with galactic civilizations who fear your potential. And we must choose one, Khalid asked. That is the test that has been failed 6 times, Interface confirmed. Previous cycles invariably chose power first, understanding later. The Sentinels await your species' decision. Choose wisely, Ambassador. The 7th trial will be humanity's last. With that, Interface dissolved back into the dimensional tier, which sealed itself behind him. The anchor powered down, leaving Khalid and Doming staring at each other in stunned silence. 3 days later, representatives from every human settlement gathered in Earth's Grand Assembly. The debate had been fierce, with factions forming around each of the 3 paths offered by the Sentinels. Many military leaders argued for the technological path. Surely with advanced defenses, humanity could protect itself from any future threat. Scientists advocated for biological transcendence, evolution guided by intention rather than chance. Politicians pushed for diplomatic integration, safety through alliance. When Ambassador Khalid took the podium to deliver humanity's response, he carried with him the weight of 7 civilizations' worth of history. Throughout our discussion, he began, we've been asking ourselves which path to choose. But perhaps the test isn't about choosing a path at all. Perhaps it's about recognizing that none of these paths alone represents true wisdom. Murmurs rippled through the assembly as Khalid continued. 6 times before, humanity reached this crossroads. 6 times we chose power in one form or another. What if this time we choose balance instead, not technological ascension without ethical foundation, not biological transcendence without cultural wisdom, not diplomatic alliance without independent contribution? He activated a holographic display showing the 3 paths offered by the Sentinels, then manipulated the projection to show them intersecting, creating something new. I propose we deliver this response. Humanity chooses all 3 paths walked in careful balance. We will advance technologically but with safeguards against weaponization. We will explore biological potential but with reverence for our human essence. We will forge alliances but maintain our unique perspective. The vote was not unanimous. Humanity had never been of one mind on any significant issue, but the majority recognized the wisdom in Khalid's proposal. The Sentinels received humanity's answer in silence. For 3 days, they maintained their position around Jupiter, their surfaces rippling with energy patterns that defied interpretation. On the 4th day, they began to transform. What had been 27 separate entities merged into a single vast structure, a gateway that spanned the distance between Jupiter and Saturn, pulsing with energy that bent light around its edges. The message that followed reached every human mind simultaneously. The boundary BCOMES the gateway, the WRDNS become the GUIDES. Humanity's 7th cycle DIVRGES from pattern, the choice is accepted. As the gateway stabilized, signals began to flood in from beyond the veil, transmissions from dozens of civilizations that had been watching, waiting for humanity's emergence. Some offered welcome, others caution, but all acknowledged what the Sentinels had confirmed. Humanity's time of isolation had ended. On the observation deck of the UES Prometheus, Commander Nakamura stood with her crew as they prepared to make history. Their ship would be the first to pass through the gateway, not as conquerors, not as refugees, but as representatives of a species that had finally broken its cycle of destruction. The real challenge begins now, Dr. Volkov observed quietly, proving that we deserve the second chance we've been given. Elise nodded, watching as the gateway pulsed with invitation. Set course, she ordered. Let's show the galaxy what humanity has become. The Prometheus moved forward, crossing the former boundary not as an act of defiance, but as a step into a future where humanity's greatest strengths, Curiosity, adaptability, and the capacity for change might finally be directed toward creation rather than destruction. Behind them, Earth continued its rotation, a blue jewel in the darkness, no longer contained by the veil that had both protected and limited it for so long. Before them stretched possibilities beyond imagination, a galaxy awaiting the catalyst that humanity had always been destined to become.